The first day of matric exams is done and dusted. Pupils have written English paper 1. The 2021 cohort have had the odds stacked against them as they grappled with COVID-19 restrictions. Our reporters are on the ground to find out how day 1 of the exams went. Silindelo Masikane is in Johannesburg, Nobesuthu Hejana is in Cape Town, and in Durban we have Mawande Kheswa. Let's start with you, Mawande, simply because I see that the weather there is looking a bit more like, what we've been seeing here in Johannesburg. It seems to be a bit rainy. The rain, restrictions that have been happening throughout the year, the July riots, and now load shedding as the matric pupils sit for their exams. What have you been hearing from the pupils that you've been speaking to?
Oh, good looking out, Tulas. What I can tell you is that the confidence which the learners that we have spoken to have shown resembles that of a tenderpreneur, skyrocketing very high. And I think it's something that the education departments, educators, parents, stakeholders would be proud of, considering the challenges that the class of 2021 had to go through, particularly those in KZN. Nationally, the curriculum had to be carried over and be completed this year, along with the workload that matric comes with. On top of that, there were challenges that the education departments in the province faced. We know that budget shortage and other factors that played in. We know that there had to be some catching up that had to be done, extra hours that had to be put in by both the educators and the learners. And I think that it's something they can be proud of, that the bulk of learners really seem to be in high spirits. Let's hear at what some of the learners at Durban Girls Secondary had to say.
Wasn't really bad for a person who studied, but I think we could have used more time, but it was a really good exam.
And in terms of the whole year and preparations, how did that go for you? I understand that teachers had to put a lot in for you to complete the curriculum from the previous year. How was that for you?
It was a bit stressful because you're thinking we are studying for the final exam and there might be a possibility that all these things that we did weren't enough, but we managed, and I think most of us will do really good in the exams.
Today's paper, it was a fair paper actually. I can't complain about anything. I feel like for me it's a fair paper because I did my past day papers, so it was much easier to know the repetition of the questions that were coming out.
Silindelo Masikane, let's bring you in. You've had a bit of a conversation. What is the basic education department and the minister, what have they been saying about the start of the National Senior Certificate exams?
Well, of course, Silas, we know that this is the biggest cohort since the dawn of our democracy to sit for the National Senior Certificates. That number sitting at around 900,000 candidates that will be sitting for the 2021 NSC exams. And, of course, the Education Department are outlining some of the challenges that have been faced by this cohort, saying that COVID-19, of course, has been the biggest challenge, but a lot of support has been garnered in order to try and ensure that this group of matric pupils are prepared. She was here at the Noordwijk Secondary School in Midrand, and she was flanked by the Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lusufu, as well as the Premier David Makura. And of course they came to encourage this group that was writing today to say that they should put their best foot forward despite the challenges that they face. Let's take a listen.
I think we are ready to go, and our kids are assuring us that they are ready to go. This is a class which had the most difficult at times. I mean, last year, grade 11s of last year, they only came back to school in July. Even when they came with a differentiated timetable. Sometimes it was alternative days, sometimes alternative weeks. So in total, they had less than 40% of their grade 11. They had to carry over some of the grade 11 work to grade 12, because the paper they're writing today was set in 2019. So no changes could be done because it was there. So they had to do everything as though there was no COVID-19. So it's a class that really got the worst of circumstances. I mean, the class of 2020 had a full 2019. So they had to struggle with their curriculum of 2020. But this one has had to combine 11 and 12 this year. So I really am concerned about them, but wish them all the best.
That's the Basic Education Minister there in conversation with you earlier on, Silindelo Masikane, and we'll be hearing from more matric pupils with Nobesuthu Hejana in just a moment. But you also spoke to some matric pupils. What did they tell you?
Certainly, it was quite interesting to see their mood, how they were feeling before writing the 2-hour paper this morning around 9 a.m. Many of them feeling excited, some were nervous, but most of them actually quite confident. And I myself, it brought back memories for me. I don't know about you and how long ago you were in Matric, but for me it wasn't that long ago. And it was quite interesting to see their reactions in terms of how they were feeling. But I did speak to them after the paper, and let's take a listen to what they had to say around how they felt writing that first paper.
This paper was pretty easy and understandable because I had enough time to study yesterday and the days before I wrote the exam, so it was pretty much simple and it was not hard, and I'm very confident about it.
The first paper, it wasn't that hard, it was just fairly, so yeah, it wasn't that hard, it was just fine.
The first paper was very easy, well, not easy, but yeah, it was hard, and yeah, I guess, yeah, and then there was no much time.
The first paper was so easy, ma'am, and we thank you for coming to visit us. We would like you to come again, and good luck to all candidates.
Yeah. Silindelo Masikane there. Let's take it to Nobesuthu Hejana out in Cape Town. And Nobesuthu, you are also about to have conversations with some pupils, in fact at least one pupil, reflecting on the first paper that has been written today.
Certainly, Tilas. In fact, when I spoke to his classmates, they were telling me that, it's been mixed reactions to the paper. Some were saying that it was fair, and others were saying that it was hard, especially the comprehension section. But Mason, how was it for you?
Well, since English is my favorite subject, it was pretty... I couldn't complain. Can't complain.
And one of the things that were raised by your classmates was that it was hard, or it's been hard, studying during the pandemic, especially last year. Not much was done. Did you also have the same experience, and how did you manage to ensure that you are well prepared for your exams?
Well, last year was very difficult, same as this year. But to manage studying, I cut off all the distractions in my life, including phones, going out, and I'd lock myself alone in the room and I'd study. That's how I got through studying. That was the best way to study.
And obviously the teachers played a big role in your life. I mean, last year some were even teaching via WhatsApp and family. So how has been that support for you?
It was very, a huge deal of support because they went out of their way to help us. And I would say that had a very positive impact on our studies, because it also increased our marks and it helped us so much.
And lastly, after Matric, what are we doing?
Since I'm a beautician by heart, that's my passion, I do want to be a makeup artist. I feel like that's the career field that I'm taking.
Okay, one last one.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not sure when the pandemic is coming to an end, and the class of 2022, maybe or those who are in grade 11 now, they'll probably experience the same challenges that you have. So what advice do you have for them?
I would say, there's a time and place for everything. Focus on your studies first. Don't shift your focus on your studies. Make sure that you study enough, get enough sleep. And lastly, knock those exams. Knock them.
Well, to us, that was the message from Mason. He says, do as much as you can, relax, study, but also make sure that you pass those exams.